Welcome to Alex Nanny, the real woman of vacation rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And we are joined today with Mark Lumpkin, who is the Director of Sales for STR Cribs. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you both for having me on. I've been a longtime listener. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Well, we're excited to have you. And I am super excited. And Alex knows that I love to brag on all the great things and great people that come from the panhandle of Florida. And you're another one, homegrown boy in terms of business. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what STR Cribs is?
Cool. Yeah. So yes, I'm obviously a Florida local as well, or South Alabama, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's the most beautiful place in the country. So happy to live here in the Emerald Coast. I would say that I'm a husband, a father. I love to travel, and I've always loved real estate. And so the short-term rental industry just kind of like naturally attracted me to it. I just kind of fell into it. I'm also a big fan of creating really unique, fun spaces. And so that's really what STR Cribs is at its core, is taking vacant properties and turning them into awesome resort-style short-term rentals. We do it all across the country. Our scope of work is quite large. And so it allows for investors to have a hands-off experience, let us handle everything for them. And we work all across the country. So we're really mobile and we can basically handle anything people need us to do.
That's so cool. I love all these different business models that have popped up in the last few years. But I'm curious, when did you get started and kind of what does the company look like in terms of organization across those 30 markets?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I've actually been in this space for coming up on 5 years. And so I was originally with Showplace, which was a virtual designer in the short-term rental space. And STR Cribs has been around for about 3 years. They've set up close to 500 properties. And so they've got a lot of experience. I've got a lot of experience in this space. We've got around 10 full-time designers. We have about 20 people in our project management and construction department that handles permitting and dealing with the HOA, ordering materials, doing cleanings, just handling everything that you need us to. So we've got a pretty robust team. There's about 30 of us total that are working on projects every day. As far as how we handle working across the country in different markets, we really look at it on a case by case and local basis. So there's some projects in some markets that we can subcontract out and just use some local labor. There's other projects that maybe require us to do some traveling for. There's other markets where we just have our go-to team because we've done multiple projects in that area. So it really depends on what the home needs and the area of the country it's in. But no matter what, we find a way to get there. We find a way to get it done.
Oh, I was at the IMN conference in Miami back in January, February timeframe. And I sat on a panel and we talked about sort of that experiential travel that is so prevalent within really more the STR space than it is in the general like vacation rental space, because the scalability of doing customized homes is harder when you're managing hundreds and thousands of units than it is if you're managing just a couple. And there was a lot of really neat conversation about it. And I'm curious, are you working with individual hosts? Are you working with large managers? Are you kind of across the board? Is it just really dependent upon what they want at an individual property?
Yeah, I would say most of our work is done for individual property owners or maybe like some institutional fund managers that are putting a lot of capital into the short-term rental space. I call it the amenities arms race. A couple years ago, we went to these conferences and no one was talking about design and amenities. And now that seems to be the hot topic. And the reason for that is the market's gotten more competitive. You've got more saturation, more density in these markets. People just have more options. And so the best house with the best amenities and the best design seems to be what's winning in today's industry. And so a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of investors who maybe even have half a dozen or a dozen properties in their portfolio, but are looking to set up the next one. They're looking to set up the next one different than they did the last 4 or 5 because they know the industry's changed. And so people that we talk to are hyper-focused on that guest experience. And it's the term stopping the scroll, right? Someone's scrolling through Airbnb. How do you get them to stop scrolling and click on your listing? Well, it's with that hero shot and something that really just rips off the screen. And those are the kind of images and experiences that we've really focused on creating.
Oh, that's so cool. It looks like you're pretty big in Orlando.
Yeah, we've done a few in Orlando. It's really competitive. We're working on a Star Wars themed house right now that has like custom bunk beds that are going to be starships. So you literally, the kids go in, it's like this spaceship bunk bed setup that we've done some cool murals. Orlando is one of those markets that if you don't go all out, I don't think you're going to do well. And, there are other markets that you don't necessarily have to go all out, but you definitely want to be really focused on who your guest avatar is and who's coming to stay at your property and why they're coming to stay at your property.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Do you help companies or hosts with that in the process? Tell us a little bit about that. I love that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so we'll do a deep dive on the data. We kind of have coined the phrase design for the data. And so we'll dive into what your specific market looks like, what kind of travelers you're seeing. Are you in a snowbird, older couples traveling market? Are you in a market that's seeing a lot of young families with little kids? And we'll really try to tailor your home to maximize the experience of those type of guests that are coming into your market. We also look at the competition. And so if I look at a market and there's a lot of 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses, but not very many 4-bedrooms, well, hey, what could we do to get you that 4th bedroom? Is there a garage space that's unused that could turn into a 4th bedroom? Is there maybe a second dining room that could be converted? There's always extra square footage. We just want to focus on how we maximize that square footage and give you the best home that's going to really drive the highest ROI. And so, yeah, we're doing an in-depth analysis on the property, on the market, on the travelers that are coming into that space, and then giving you a blueprint, a playbook that's going to give you the most success.
It's got to be exciting to work with clients or individual hosts that have that appetite to do this too. Because I mean, on the other side of things, you've got the traditional rental companies where every year it's like pulling teeth to get homeowners to update an old TV or a couch that, has gotten terrible reviews over and over again, that they're just really penny pinching and they don't want to put any more money into it. This is like a dream for most property managers if they had these types of homeowners.
Yeah, that is a great point. We work with a lot of property managers who send referrals to us, and we get to be the bad guys and kind of tear apart their listing and say, hey guys, you're not doing well. There's a reason you're not doing well. Look at the houses in your neighborhood that you're competing against.
Yeah.
Ask yourself this, would you book your house over that house? No, you wouldn't. And so how can you expect to do well? I know that's a really hard predicament for property managers to find themselves in because they need the inventory. They want the inventory. They don't want to lose that property owner in that listing. But I think that we're a great partner for them to have where we can come in, we can be the bad guys, we can make recommendations. And at the end of the day, you don't have to invest $100,000 into a property. You can do some small things like decor updates, full length mirrors, rugs, a fresh coat of paint. You can do some stuff to really improve your property for thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands. But it does require an owner to be willing to invest in the home. And if they're not, I think that they're just going to be disappointed with getting the same results over and over again.
That's really funny. I was recently at a showdown in Mexico City, and I was sitting with some people, and they handed me over somebody's phone and said, would you look at this gentleman's listing? He wants to know why it's not booking. We think we know. We just want your opinion. And I took one look at it, and the look on my face said everything. And he was like, he just kind of said, oh God, what is she going to say? And I was like, would you stay in this unit? He goes, well, I mean, it's close to the beach. I was like, is it looking at the beach? And he said, no. And I said, then why would somebody stay in this? It looks like a prison cell. He was so mortified, but he was like, I appreciate you. My wife told me the same thing, but I told him that the fact that it was so close to the beach, like that nobody would care what it looked like. I was like, all you got to do is go to Target and buy a rug. Like that's really all you got to do and like put some color into it. And I think sometimes people get so lost in the investment of it that they're not looking at like, well, how do we make it aesthetically pleasing so the investment works? They just can't see the forest for the trees. I think as a property manager, when I was doing that, the conversations with owners to get them, like Alex said, to get them annually to do these seemingly meaningless things like upgrade a TV or change the carpet or buy a sofa, like it was so frustrating and so hard. But to be able to have somebody to partner with, to be able to play the bad guy, like I really like that position. I think we can refer you to a lot of people that could use that help.
I think a lot of companies there's a need for that and would much rather just be like, okay, this is the expert. We've brought them in as the consultant here. And, it's hard because to your point, they don't want to lose that inventory. But at the same time, as a brand and as a company, it's so important to keep that in mind that it's like, if you have properties that they're not updating and it's dragging down your review scores, that's when you have to make those tough decisions that if they're not going to do something, you have to let them go.
Definitely. And that's the only decision they can make when they've got investors that want to step up their game. I think it's really hard for people to make the mind shift change from I'm a long-term investor and I have long-term rentals to I'm a short-term investor and I'm running a hotel, right? Mm-hmm. Is being in the short-term rental industry any different than running a hotel? I don't think so. You've got to attract people to come stay at your property. You've got to turn it over with cleaning. You have to provide basic amenities. You have to provide a great bed, a good stay. Like there's so much correlation between the two.
Yep.
That I think that when you're in the short-term rental industry, I think you're in the hotel industry. You're not in the long-term rental industry. And it's hard for investors to shift their mind from one to the other.
That's a really good point. I mean, I think about, some of these condo resort buildings in Myrtle Beach, and, there's several that every few years, they do some pretty major upgrades. And these are, substantial capital projects. But whenever they do those, it's like, that's where everybody's going to stay that year. But then you have a lot of same thing. You've got the older style resorts that they just don't want to make those improvements. But, ultimately it comes back in the form of revenue or lost revenue when you don't make that decision.
Definitely, right? I mean, that's why restaurants go out of business. I think, what's that show with the guy, he goes in and tears apart the bar in a restaurant?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a great, funny show and it's entertaining. But they're always talking about, hey, every couple of years you have to rebrand. Even a restaurant, you've got to rebrand that restaurant and change out the booths and keep it fresh and new and exciting. And the hospitality industry is no different. People are looking at the house as part of the vacation. They might be going to Myrtle Beach, but they're going to Myrtle Beach to stay at this beach property because it has the game room for the kids, the hot tub and the sauna for mom and dad, and a killer view, right? That house is the vacation.
Yeah. I think a lot of areas actually look at it a little bit differently, that they're like, they're not there for the accommodations. They're there for the destination. But, and I think there's not a right or wrong answer to that. I think it kind of depends. But in this new wave of travel, of being able to see these just incredible properties that are out there, there's a lot more people that they actually really are going, and the house or the property itself is a destination for the whole trip.
So going to the fun part of all of this, so these different amenities, and I've seen some of the posts that you've made and some of the various layouts of backyards and those type of things. And I know the one that's super hot and popular right now is pickleball. I know we deal with the pickleball in Panama City, and I think every market's dealing with it right now. They're kind of noisy. So when you go into a destination and somebody says, I want all these amenities, do you look at it and say, well, let's look at what's around you? Where is your property located so that you're not putting, again, a pickleball court in next to a couple that lives next door that could be, 80 years old and they don't want to hear slamming all day long. So you want to give them more indoor amenities, those type of things. Do you factor that in when you talk people through the process?
That's a really kind of a hard question to answer. What they decide to do with their backyard is totally up to them.
Sure.
I get it. There are going to be neighbors. They are probably not going to love it. We always suggest really focusing on having your quiet hours and making sure you're abiding by all the rules. But as far as what the neighbors are going to think about what you do in your backyard, that's down to the individual owner.
Sure.
And I think we've all dealt with one of our properties that has a neighbor that doesn't like that it's a short-term rental, but we're really just focused on what's going to get the most amount of guests there to pay the highest ADR. And those backyard amenities drive ROI and people love them. So yeah, you might piss off some neighbors, but hopefully you make enough money to make it worth it.
Well, on that, what is the cheapest amenity that you could add that you're going to get the highest return on?
I think it really depends on who the guests are that are traveling to your space and then what market you're in. So you want to look at where you're at. If you're in a mountain town, cabin town, ski resort town, hot tubs, barrel saunas are going to be really high ROI driving amenities. Everyone has a hot tub right now. It's really kind of a checkbox amenity. If you opened a property in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and you didn't have a hot tub, you're probably not going to do well. So those are things that you either need to have or they're really, really nice to have. And then when you look at maybe these kind of family-friendly destinations like Tampa, Florida, or Orlando, really thinking about what the kids can do to have fun with, which is game rooms, outdoor jungle gyms. We do some really cool built-in bunk beds with slides. Those are a really high ROI driving amenity. And then I've kind of got a quick list of inexpensive amenities that I think are really nice to have and are going to drive ROI. One is the arcade games. So we all remember the old school arcade games. My mom used to drop me off at the arcade with a pocket full of quarters and leave me there all day, and I'd have a blast. Well, millennials right now are the largest demographic of people traveling, and we are all the arcade generation.
We all remember that, yeah.
You remember, right?
Yeah.
And so it's nostalgic for us. It's just cool. You see it in the pictures. They cost a few $100s. They can fill up an empty corner or make a kid's bedroom into a game room. So those are really cool amenities. I also think full-length mirrors. 99% of women and 98% of men want a full-length mirror in a bedroom. Make sure you look okay before you leave the house. You can buy full-length mirrors for $99 at IKEA, and they get rid of that nasty corner that has nothing in it. They reflect light really well, so the room photographs better. There's so many benefits to a full length mirror. And I could go on and on and on, but there's just a lot of little things that you can do in a house that really improve it overall. You don't have to go spend 50 grand to get a pickleball court. If you've got the 50 grand, let's do it. But if you don't, there's other things you can do, right?
I totally hear you on the full length mirror. And I can't tell you how many times I've been staying somewhere that doesn't have that. And so to make sure that my shoes look good with my dress, I will stand on like a chair. I'll get a chair from the kitchen and like stand in the bathroom. And sometimes this doesn't end very well. So it would be much appreciated, certainly, if more properties had full length mirrors.
That's true.
Next time you do that, post a picture so we can see you standing on a chair, tilting in heels, like trying to see yourself.
Oh my gosh.
This is terrible.
What not to do.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is like, think about how many houses you've stayed at that don't have blackout curtains. Are you kidding me? Like, when's the last time you stayed at a hotel that didn't have blackout curtains? That would never happen. And so you've got guests traveling from different time zones. You've got small kids that need to take naps. But I'm going to guess 9 out of 10 properties I've personally stayed at don't have blackout curtains. Why not? That's a hospitality basic, right? And so really thinking about that stuff is going to make a big difference in your property success and your guest experience.
We'll be back in just a minute after a word from our premier brand sponsor, HostAway.
My name is Derek DeCesare, owner of Sandstays. We're up here in Maine. We have about 120 units. We've been using HostAway since 2020. Chose to use HostAway because we were looking for a forever PMS. The one we had was the first one we ever did, and it just wasn't cutting it. When we searched for more, things that brought us to them were the customer service, which was fantastic, and I was really taken back by, and that they had a mobile app, which I felt in today's world was a really big piece. So with the service, right off the bat, response rate, the fact that I can not only email, that I have a customer success rep, that I can also do a live chat, I can also call. So the service is there in whatever aspect I need it to be. And everyone's super friendly, which I know is, you should be in customer service, but I can tell you, as I'm sure a lot of people can, that's not always the case with a lot of products out there. So the features I love about HostAway the most, and I'll name 3, are, the facts we can handle reviews right in there, how robust the messaging channel is, all in one platform. And I think it's underrated, but the booking engine, we manage actually a few brands like the motels and things like that, and we can actually create different booking engines. And I just love how clean it looks. It's mobile friendly. We can build a booking engine because it's hard. We don't have to use third party, which has benefit. Again, it's integration, it's marketplace. I know I didn't mention it in the features, but the fact that it just has this huge marketplace that's growing almost monthly, it seems, connect with StateBuy. And because it has this direct integration with StateBuy, it just makes life so much easier. So it's just helped us build direct bookings. I'd recommend HostAway to other vacation rental managers because whether they're large or small, if you're small, they'll help you get large. If you're large, they'll help you keep going. And then if you want to stay where you are, they'll still help you. They're just a real group of good people over there, genuine people. Not always just trying to sell you something, it just seemed more real.
Ready to go pro? Learn why thousands of property managers are using HostAway to take their vacation rental business to the next level.
Visit get.hostaway.com/Alex and Annie and get started today.
On the data side of how you help these managers make this decision, beyond the reviews, do you have any sort of a process that you go through to analyze any of their surveys or things that maybe aren't just the forward-facing Vrbo reviews or Airbnb reviews? What does that look like?
As far as from taking a property from where it sits today to where it could be if we did a refresh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the reviews are nice to have. Looking at the competition is really probably the most powerful thing you can do. And so if you're here and there's other houses up here, well, what are they doing to get up there that you're missing out on? And I'm going to guess a lot of times it's not necessarily that they're beachfront and they have an extra 1,000 square feet, or there's a lot of things you might look at it and go, there's things that are out of my control. I get that. But what we see a lot of times is that there's a lot of small things that are within their control. Maybe the property is not kid friendly and doesn't have a pack and play and a high chair and all that stuff that comes with a property being kid friendly. Maybe you're not dog friendly. If you don't want dogs in your house, I get it, but that's a quick change that can really improve your ROI and your revenue. So there's a lot of little things that we see that people can do. And what we do is we look at the high benchmarks in the market. Who has the best properties? Who's making the most ROI? And what are they doing? And what can we do similar?
Will you go stay in properties like ones that, so like Orlando, like you were talking about? I mean, I've stayed in a couple of different property managers' houses down there, and they all start to look kind of the same because they are doing the same amenities. Like I've been in 3 or 4 in the last couple of years. Like they all have the slides, they all have the game room, they have the big pool, they have those kind of things. Do you go stay in like competitors of your clients' properties to kind of get a look and feel, and maybe that the service is also playing a role in what the amenities actually are?
Yeah, we don't typically go stay in the houses, but you did bring up a good point, is that when you have a lot of density in a market, you tend to have a lot of homes that start to look similar, right? And I think of that as a big reason for why you should hire a service kind of like ours, where we're not location specific. And so what we're doing works in a lot of different markets. And when we come into like Asheville, North Carolina, and we do a house, well, we might have only done a couple houses in that market, but there's one designer I can think of who's done 100 houses in that market. Well, all of her houses start to look the same after she gets hired over and over and over again. And we come in with a fresh take and a fresh look. And so, a lot of people say, well, hey, you're not local. I think of that as an advantage because we haven't done 50 houses in your market. Maybe we've just done 1 or 2. And so our homes are really going to stand out and be different.
Like a fresh set of eyes. That's good. Yeah.
Fresh set of eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
What's the craziest, best renovation that you've done? Most over the top?
We've done a few that I've just absolutely been really impressed with. I want to get my own TV show. I feel like we should be on HGTV, swinging a hammer, the fix and flip shows.
The name STR Cribs, it's already landed and ready. So I can see that.
I'm glad you picked up on that. Yeah, we totally named it after MTV Cribs. So we've done a few in Scottsdale and a few in Florida that have just been totally over the top. Bright colors. We did a Cancun themed house that was like a bright purple basketball court and neon signs. And quite frankly, it's not a house any of us would want to live in. After a week or two, you'd be like, okay, it's too much. This is obnoxious. I had fun. But those properties are doing really, really well because they stop the scroll. They're so unique. They're so different. People want to go stay there for a weekend or a week. And the ones that we go over the top on seem to do the best. And so my always encouragement is if you're going to do it, you might as well go all in because you're going to get the return. And if you do it half-assed, you're going to get the half-assed returns.
Yeah. Go big or go home.
Definitely.
Find a different home. Oh, that's really cool. So as you look to expand into other markets, what's on your radar? What areas do you think would really benefit from these services?
I think that there's a lot of different markets that have not been tapped into and have really not been optimized. Broken Bow. I'm looking at Huntsville, Alabama, Lake Martin. Michigan seems to be a market and Wisconsin seem to be 2 markets where I see a lot more growth in the short-term rental industry. What I like to do is I like to look at markets and look at all the homes. And so if I look at the first page of Airbnb on any market and the first 10 houses all look exactly the same, to me, that's a market that's untapped potential. If I go in there and I do something different than the other 50 houses, I'm going to win every single time. And so it doesn't even necessarily matter, I guess, what the market is and what's up and coming. I just like to look at markets where everything's the same and every house has the same couch and has the same amenities and has the same service. And then if I can do something totally different, I know I'm going to win in that market.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking some of these legacy beach markets that have just huge beach homes. South of where I am in Myrtle Beach, Garden City, Surfside, Outer Banks, these markets these are huge homes and they do well, but it's a lot of them are just, unless they were newly built, they're a little dated. You don't see when you're searching anything like what you're talking about in those search results. So
those are hard markets to compare because you've got these huge houses that are beachfront. And so people are paying a premium to come to your house because the house is so unique and the location is so unique. And I don't necessarily think that our service is going to have the biggest difference on those type of properties because the beachfront house is always going to rent out because people are coming to the beach. But if you're in the middle of a city and there's 30 other properties that look just like yours and you don't have a distinct real estate advantage, you need an amenities advantage, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, how many projects at any given time do you guys have in the works? And then what does your pipeline look like for future projects?
Yeah, we've got about 45 active projects and we're typically doing somewhere between say 15 to 20 a month. And that keeps us pretty busy.
I guess so. And so you're identifying future markets. Like how far out are you actually signing contracts? Because I would imagine that you also have to be mindful of trends. So you don't want to get in them, have a project that's 6 months down the road that you're planning on something when all of a sudden that trend is like, it's gone. It's like the Barbie trend. Everybody wanted to do Barbie and that was great. And it was wonderful. But like that after a certain amount of time, it's only going to appeal to a small portion of it instead of a large portion of the audience. So do you keep that in, like have a whiteboard somewhere that you're writing on trends and following them?
Post-it notes, anything like that?
Yeah.
You are right that the very heavily themed homes can be a trend, right? If you did a Taylor Swift house in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, because Taylor Swift was coming to do a concert in a couple of months, you're going to capitalize on that weekend and make a crap load of money. And then that house is going to die because that market is not going to support a heavily themed house that's so unique. And so we definitely stray people away from things like that, where they're so unique, so themed, so niched. We more or less want you to have a really nice, beautiful home that's colorful and pops and attracts families or couples or whoever your guests are that are always going to be coming and really maximizes them. But if you're in certain markets like Orlando and you do a Disney themed house, well, Disney's not going anywhere. So you're okay to do something like that. And if you go to Nashville and do a cowgirl bachelorette themed house, you're going to be fine. Nashville is always going to be a bachelorette destination for country folks, right? And so there are definitely certain markets that we would advise our clients to capitalize and go all in and double down on a really heavily designed and themed house. And then there are other places where we would say, hey, you should probably not do that. This might work out in the short term, but it's not a great long-term investment just because the market specifically won't support this for a long time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what does the rest of the year look like outside of planning for those markets? Like, does the team go to conferences? Like, do you get set up with booths or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that we're planning on VRMA in Scottsdale. Are you ladies going to be there?
Oh yeah, we'll be there.
Well, I'm going to preemptively give you VIP invitations to our black tie event, which is going to be done at a $5 million listing that we're currently putting together in Scottsdale. And it is going to be probably the coolest short-term rental in the entire country when we're all said and done. And our goal is that the house is done the first week of October. And we're going to do a launch party with just a select group of folks from the VRMA. And so I'm extending 2 tickets to the both of you for October if you want to come.
That sounds
Absolutely.
great. We love a good red carpet, and it's been a couple of years since we did the last one. So
yeah.
Okay, we're going to go all out on it. So I'll definitely keep you in the loop on that. That's what we've got on the agenda. We are actually doing some stuff that's a little unique that maybe a lot of folks in the short-term rental industry don't think about, which is going to events and branching outside of the short-term rental industry. And so we service investors of all kinds, and we don't have to be at every short-term rental event, but we might go to like a doctor event or an oral surgeon event or find folks that are in different industries and open up the short-term rental industry as an opportunity for them to invest in. And so we're definitely strategically thinking about how we can get in front of other people who aren't today thinking about the short-term rental industry, but could be a good asset and should be thinking about the short-term rental industry.
That's very smart.
what about realtors? I'm sure you must deal with realtors quite a bit.
We do, yeah. We've got a really great realtor referral program. We do see a lot of projects come through our realtor network. And so, yeah, we're always trying to network with realtors. There's kind of so many people in the world, and there's so many great business professionals and people that are really valuable to have in your network. So we're really being strategic about that and going outside of the short-term rental space.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. We've got definitely a breadth of understanding of the industry, getting to see all those different sides of it too. So that's really cool. I think black tie in Scottsdale sounds great.
Okay.
Definitely let us know.
I definitely will.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Mark. This is awesome to learn more about STR Cribs, and we're excited to watch your journey as you guys continue to expand across the United States. But in the meantime, if anybody wants to reach out, what's the best way for them to contact you?
I'll let you share my email in the show notes, and then LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me as well. I'm pretty active on there. Thank you both for having me on. Super fun to hang out with you. I've obviously been a longtime listener, and I'm looking forward to connecting again in Scottsdale in a couple months.
Awesome. Thank you. We appreciate that very much. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Annie and I, you can go to alexandanniepodcast.com. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, everybody.